Though Lady Asprey wasn't averse to a restorative tonic, if you get my meaning, Maddox.
Is that game? Does that count as game? Well, anyway, it's a seagull and I shot it.
Of course, on my side of pigs, a ginnel's a snicket, and here's them calling it a twit and give over.
Hello and welcome to Hunting Button House. I don't know where I paused then. A BBC Ghost podcast. I am Luke and I am joined by Tash. How are you, Tash?
I'm alright, thanks, Luke. How are you?
I'm okay. We just scared our cat for some reason. I don't know what we did then.
She just did turbo.
Okay. So you might hear a turbo cat in a second. But anyway, how are you? Yeah, good.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Ooh.
So it's
Not
been
a lot. It's been 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Not much, unfortunately. I haven't got much to show for my last 2 weeks apart from work as usual. We went to a vintage clothes thing.
Market thing? I don't know. Yeah.
It wasn't very good.
Very good, was it?
I don't want to be negative, but it wasn't very good.
Don't be negative, but no.
Yeah, it wasn't very good. I don't feel like we've done that much. I think we're doing like DIY a lot in the house, and that kind of takes up a lot of our time.
I was away when I in London.
Yeah. I crocheted a lot that day.
You did, yeah. I imagine so. I was away in London watching a big wrestling show at Wembley, so I won't go into the details of that, but it was good. But yeah, that was my weekend away, like 2 weeks. Was it 2 weeks? 3? I can't remember how long it was now.
It was the bank holiday, wasn't it?
It was a bank holiday, yeah. So, yeah. More busy stuff. How about feedback? What have we got?
Yeah, so we've got quite a lot of feedback because obviously we've been on
a few weeks.
But I've got it here, but I haven't thought. I've just kind of screenshotted it ready to go. So I might need to keep finding my place. But so Marianne says this episode actually made me cry more than once. So obviously last episode that we watched was Gone.
Yeah.
Where
Mary.
So I got confused. I was like Marianne and Mary. Mary leaves us.
Yeah.
So that was quite an emotional episode. Mary was a great character. Oh, so Marianne says that Mary was a great character, and I was truly sorry to see her sucked off.
You just need to go. Just say it. You
I know.
Just got to say it.
I've got to own it.
Yeah,
I've got to own it.
Yeah.
The birthday party was a nice distraction and kept us from sinking into sadness, and I enjoyed how the episode wound around the glee of the party and the heartbreak of losing Mary. Robin's wisdom at the eulogy is so sweet, and you come to realise he has seen so very many of his friends sucked off. How do you process that over the millennium?
So I know you said own it, but when you said he's seen so many of his friends sucked up, it's like you can't take that seriously. Yeah.
Well, you have to. Marianne said in the last scene where they were assigning Mary a star, more tears. Such good episode. This was a 10 for me. Marianne said vol au vents are single bite puff pastries with some filling, either savoury or sweet. Think pizza rolls, because we had to Google what they
I know that they're always at like family parties I've been to, because everyone always mentions that they have them, and I just have never eaten them or gone near them.
Avoided them.
That doesn't sound like something I'm interested in.
No. Marianne said, and I swear I remember the episode where Mike runs through Button House naked and Humphrey asks if someone's clapping. Was that in the first season? So no, that came off the back of Alison's question. I think it was Alison who asked that about if anyone remembered that. I think it was like a blooper or like that, someone. I think Caroline says later on in some more feedback about it. I think a lot of kids have past life memories. They fade with age and self-awareness. So that's from I talked about that book. Mm-hmm. But tiny kids are often open to exploring this if you ask them the correct questions. Someone once shared with me that this is why all newborn baby photos have expressions on their faces, basically saying, oh no, not this again. I've also heard that birthmarks are often carryovers that were fatal wounds from a past life. That's interesting.
I've heard stories like that about it's not even just like past lives, but it's like having different this will sound like fantastical, but like abilities. So like kids have said, "Oh, I floated down the stairs" or something like that. And I'm like, "No, you didn't. No, you didn't do that." And it's like,
I definitely
Who
had
knows?
dreams though of like, I've kind of heard other things that I know personally. Like I've had dreams of like as an adult of floating down the stairs, but like apparently that's like you remembering like your freedom as a child.
that's what they want you to think.
But it's weird because I definitely like, and I'd be interested to know if other people have had this dream too, because I've read that they have, but I mean, you know, who knows, that like you have this dream of like floating down the stairs, but I always wake up before I get to the bottom to like that hard hitting reality of hitting the floor. So yeah. So he's had some more feedback from Docking Docs. This opening is quite similar to the previous episode in that we're right into the action with last week's aftermath of the unseen telling off. I can't even remember because it's been 2 weeks
I know,
since we recorded it. I
that's
can't
the thing,
even remember that.
trying to remember all of it, yeah.
Regarding never intending a character to leave, this would fit as it is about the tedium of afterlife where they resort to bickering, although it's interesting that they already introduced the concept of being sucked off in season 2 with Annie in the Thomas Thorne affair, so they could easily write Katie out with existing lore.
It's interesting that they came up with like an idea to get rid of like cast members, because how do you get rid of a ghost? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they did have an idea. Well, they did it from the very first episode, actually, I guess, because they say the ghost goes and they go, "Oh, she's staying," and then she leaves.
Yes,
so I suppose like that's kind of the
because
first
she even
thing.
interacts with them. She says like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And then Fanny says, "I'm your like great whatever," and then she goes. So yeah. We've seen the similarities. So Docking Docs also said we've seen the similarities between Pat and the captain last season in Woodworm Men when they go camping. Pat can actually pitch a tent using knots, whereas the captain doesn't know the names of things, but eventually earns some badges from Pat. Kitty mentions Mary has become a ghost after moving on, a term she previously used in Series 2, Episode 1, The Grey Lady. Ghost hunters claim to detect activity in an area where Kitty is, but she doesn't seem to realise she's a ghost. So gets scared about ghosts haunting her. That's I never remembered that. Fanny mentions Alison would wear black for 2 years, which would fit for a widow mourning her husband in Edwardian times, which is interesting how Fanny sees the relationship. The next longest mourning period is 6 months for a parent or child.
I know it's like you're meant to have a long, well, back in the day they used to have long mourning periods, like for the Queen and
I feel like
stuff
for
like
the
that.
Queen we're meant to have like, we have 2 days of mourning, but they don't enforce that everyone wears black.
I didn't realise that they changed any like public place had to have a certain playlist. Like they couldn't have certain songs, and like radio stations couldn't play certain songs. It's crazy.
It is interesting. The entertainer is credited as Tony Vanoli.
That's definitely not his real name.
But I don't think this is ever mentioned. Perhaps this was cut. Of the stars Robin names at the end, we meet William briefly next season in episode 4.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that.
We see them in the castle sharing a joke. Then Will get sucked off after an
indeterminate
biggie indeterminate time of waiting. A young Humphrey and Sophie turn up. So,
okay.
Yeah, God. These people use some big words, man. Okay. So yes, that's good feedback. Caroline says, in answer to Alison's call out about Mike's nuddy run in the hardest word, I think that was what we were referring to. With that one, she is definitely correct that Humphrey's head does ask if someone was clapping. It seems to be an outtake though, as I've just watched both runs for research purposes and it's not there.
It does sound like an ad lib or something like that. Just somebody would come up with on the fly. You know, really.
Definitely. Luke's googling seems to have been correct. Operation Desert Storm was a US-led operation developing out of Operation Desert Shield. Although the British military were an integral part of this. So in this case, I think Julian is misremembering or misrepresenting his part in naming it.
Very possible. Yeah, that's literally was the year I was born. So, so I don't remember a lot from that year, unfortunately.
And Caroline says, I agree with Tash that if people are lucky enough to survive to a really great age, the inevitability of death of people that they have been close to just increases, and one becomes more philosophical about loss. I remember my parents, who both lived into their 90s, noting that they'd been to yet another funeral, and that there was no one left of their family and friends. So it's interesting to have different takes on it, I suppose.
Well, literally, I think I said the other day to you that life is basically everybody you love dying and then you die, which is depressing when you put it that way.
I think it's that like never-ending. I think it. Wow, this is probably way too deep for this podcast. I'm probably oversharing slightly, but I do feel like you just constantly grieve. Like you just after when someone like you are close to dies, you grieve, and then someone else close to you dies, and then you grieve like that person and then it's just gonna be so.
Anyway, let's.
Caroline also said we do see William briefly in one episode, so it's back to what Dr. Doc said.
Okay.
I
genuinely cannot remember
moved
that.
on after sharing a joke with Robin. I think Luke's suggestion that he is a Norman or similar is about right.
Okay, maybe I did know, subconsciously it was in there. And I'm like, good guess.
And then Nick said, best episode of the whole series so far for me, 10 out of 10. I agree with everything you said about the delicate handling of grief and a true example of how good the writing is in Ghosts. On a lighter note, the blooper reel of Pat discussing the beige colour of kids' food, one of my favourite bloopers. Go check out the bloopers if you've not already. Okay, I feel like that's something we miss out on. We don't tend to I think I'm so conscious of having my opinion of episodes and storylines infected by watching other things. I don't know if that makes sense.
Bloopers probably
wouldn't.
Yeah,
I guess that.
Do you know what? Bloopers are hard to find these days, because they used to be you buy the DVD, then the blooper reels on the DVD. But because everything's streaming now, you just never see the blooper reels unless they release it on YouTube or something like that. It's a bygone thing, really.
Yeah, it's we'll have to go and have a look. Maybe that'll be a bonus episode.
Bonus episode.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of
that
hard,
bit was funny.
That bit was funny. And maybe we could watch some bloopers and we'll share our favourite ones.
Favourite bloopers,
like Nick has, and then we'll kind of it's good shout. So Alison says, I think everyone got the memo about William and we just completely missed this. Yeah. I think William was the ghost that Robin was talking to by the fire before he moved on.
No, the sad thing is we've seen the entire series, so we've definitely seen this.
It's kind of, I think...
To be fair, we watched it a while ago and it was in the heights of COVID. So we a lot of stuff happened in that year.
Yeah. So Alison also said that he left Robin alone until Humphrey arrived. This wasn't until the next series, though. This was a really touching episode, especially the scene at the end where they're looking at the stars. I did giggle, though, when Robin told them that one is the International Space Station. And Amy responded to Alison and said, yes, I agree about William. I think that's why Robin laughed like he did when pointing out William's star. William seemed to be very funny. Yeah, we've obviously very much missed that, so we need to go. We'll remember this when we get to that episode.
Definitely.
Amy also said, on another more serious note, I think the fact that they covered a birthday party within the same episode as losing someone was very clever of the writers. Definitely, I never really considered that hard, that full circle. It seemed like a lovely way to show how that no matter what happens, no matter how sad we may feel sometimes, life goes on and there is still joy to be found in it. Seeing the ghosts, some of them being super old and contemplating their own afterlives, contrasted against the youth of the kids that they are dancing with, who are at the beginning of their own lives, has a heartwarming moment. Finishing the episode with something as innocent and simple as a game of musical statues was a great way to show that life is meant to be celebrated. Mary would have loved it. I think she definitely would have loved that too. I also really like the fact that they wrote Mary's a blessed... I like how you've put S, line, G. So sucking off as so sudden without warning, because that's also a reflection of what happens in real life. Instead of ending the episode with her getting sucked off and making the run up to it dramatic and drawn out, they were able to end the episode on a high note instead. Absolutely. It's just... Yeah, it's just a really good episode. What did you rate the episode? I can't remember.
It was either a 9 or a 10.
Maybe we both did a 10.
I don't know if I gave it a 10 or an 8.
I gave it a 10.
Do you know what? I can find it. Right.
I couldn't remember what you did. It just, I think...
A 9.
Did you?
I gave it a 9, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it... I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. It just left my head. I think Amy summed it up really well, actually. It's just that kind of... that contrast of like the two things, and absolutely like ending it on high rather than, because I think we commented at the beginning of like how early it is that she moves on, and we were just like, like I forgot that it was so early. But when you look at a TV show like we're doing, like not just sort of watching it for entertainment purposes, like we're trying to be critical or whatever with it, you see, like, you sort of appreciate more these really clever bits. Yeah,
the way they work it into stuff. Yeah. And you can kind of see as well, when you go back, you can kind of see them. It's unexpected, but they do lead up to it. It's not, my God, it's complete shock. No. It's kind of breadcrumbed to that point. Yes, so you at least like go, okay, I can understand. It's a surprise, not a shock. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. No, I think just a really good... I don't think I can say, like, that more. Like, it's just a really good episode. Because it is, so... Shall we see if this week's episode is really good as well?
If you like.
I was waiting for a follow-up. So this week we are looking at the episode Poached Guests, and it was directed by Simon Hind, written by Lawrence Rickard and Ben Wilbond. I should say as well that this is the 5th episode of Series 4. I usually do that. I've forgotten this week. The original air date was the 21st of October 2022. So we start and we see Mike making tea and getting really angry at a review that the guest host has got, basically saying that there's nothing to do, and they try to think of ideas of what you can actually do there. So he suggests they can go to the pub down the road, which is closed. There's the great outdoors, which I think our cat wants to go to.
Do you think you book somewhere though without kind of looking at what there is to do? Like,
I think some people definitely do.
Well, that's on them.
Yeah.
I felt that through this whole episode. I was like, I would not book somewhere without looking at what there was to do, unless I didn't want to do anything. Mm-hmm. In which case that would be perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's nothing to do apparently, or he's thinking of ideas and I actually can't think of anything to do there. Mike thinks he's going on a bit at this point because he's ranting, and Alison isn't really taking it in, and he says, "Oh, sorry, I'm going on," and then Alison says, "No, it's just," and then we immediately cut to seeing all of the ghosts surrounding Alison and just in an argument, basically. Mm-hmm. And when we cut to the ghosts, we see what they're arguing about is the perfect cup of tea, or the perfect colour of tea. I think it's not. It's even as simple as that. Mm-hmm. What is your perfect cup of tea colour?
I don't know what colour it would be. I like it very strong.
Yeah.
So just like a minimal amount of milk. I even have it without milk, to be honest.
Well, there you go. There's probably some people who are absolutely livid about that, much like the ghosts would be in this situation. I always had it described as the perfect cup of tea is the colour of Hulk Hogan's tan in the 90s. And there you go, there's the perfect colour of tea.
You have sugar in tea, though, which disgusts me.
Well, there you go. We're as bad as the ghosts. I like Pat at this point, who has the strongest argument because he says, "I'm from Yorkshire, mate. I'm practically made of tea." Which, yeah, it's quite a thing in Yorkshire.
Or you can get Yorkshire tea. So.
Well, exactly, yeah. And they're big on it.
I don't know what tea bag. We don't really have a specific tea bag.
I'll be honest, I don't taste the difference.
There's a massive difference.
Apparently, but I don't get it. Apparently, I don't have a sophisticated palate. I'm the same with coffee and wine, though.
Says a man that's never had Volleyballs.
I'm the same with wine and coffee. I'm just like, I can tell.
We were just having the coffee conversation. Actually,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just, as long as it tastes kind of what it's meant to taste like, I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
I think wine you can definitely tell different. I think you can tell a good wine and a bad wine, but apart from that, I don't think you can tell the difference.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I need to drink more of those things and actually reset. Probably not. Anyway.
We digress.
Yeah. Alison says the ghosts might be spending a little bit too much time together. And I think it's Robin says they don't have much choice. And Thomas says you can't choose the people you're trapped with for eternity in the afterlife. They continue to argue and Alison just gives up at this. And we see the captain is so annoyed that he just storms off and goes for a wander. And we see him patrolling the boundary of the house and just marching around. And then as he walks past one of the hedgerows, he's greeted good morning by a man. And he quickly realises what's just happened. And runs to tell the other ghosts. And we just see Robin say, "I told you." So we're left on that sort of note as we go into the intro. So with that, they all go and see this. Well, we don't know who it is at first, but we find out it's a ghost, another ghost. And Robin says that he's been seeing him for ages. And as they're walking down there, Thomas says, "Yeah, but you do tend to have a bit of an overactive imagination." Or he says his imagination gets away with him, basically. And then we see this compilation of Robin's claims as he keeps... I just like to imagine them filming this, because I imagine they filmed it all like back to back, and they were like, just keep running in to shot and just showing something. So his claims are he saw the Queen.
Does he say which one?
He didn't say which Queen, so this
could be true.
Any point as well. Could be any Queen. He says he saw horses doing it. And he saw them filming a carry-on film. So those are the three claims that he saw. How true do you think those are? Do you reckon they'll all be true? Or I mean, he's literally not lied about this one. So
no, and he didn't lie about his friend either, did he?
That's true. Yeah.
So I don't know. He didn't strike me as someone who would lie. I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in when they film the Carry On film, because
I know, yeah, they'll be in the 60s, surely.
Yeah, and I bet Pat loves the Carry On film.
Yeah, he seems like right up his street. Yeah. They all tell Alison, but she, as they're walking past, she's like painting the fence, I think, or the gate, and she says, "Oh, the last thing I need is another ghost." And then we see. Probably, arguably, a worse person turn up. We see Barclay arrive on a quad bike. Now, I've written this down, and I hope I don't offend anybody out there. Quad bike, possibly the most obnoxious vehicle for the most obnoxious man.
I don't think a quad bike is obnoxious.
I mean, they are quite... Don't get me wrong, they're fun, but they're a bit obnoxious, you know what I mean? Like, they're loud, they're boisterous. And
okay, I can... Yeah. But they're very practical if you live on a farm.
On a farm, maybe, yeah. Maybe you have to be... if you have a lot of land, it's a lot more... I don't know.
Maybe I'm biased.
You just want a quad bike, don't you?
Damn right, I want a quad bike. No, that I would drive.
He asks about this B&B that they've started.
I like how he still doesn't know her name.
Yeah, still has no idea.
Annabelle.
I'm pretty sure he does
On purpose.
On purpose, yeah, just
he's
to wind her up.
An arsehole.
Yeah, I mean, which she calls him that later on. And we definitely hear her say it if you're listening to if you listen to it on headphones anyway. But yeah, so he's inquiring about this B&B that they've opened up, and he's a bit worried about it because he says that it's turning the area into a bit like Blackpool. And he says, before you know it, it's all fun fairs, donkey rides, and a prostitution problem. Which Alison says, "When's the last time you left the area?" Barclay is sort of not really won over until Alison says that it's £200 a night to stay at this B&B, and then you kind of see a light bulb go off as he sort of has an idea from this. Elsewhere, we see Mike is still really annoyed about this review, and he's talking to Obi on the phone, and he's thinking of ideas that they can do. Obi suggests bungee jumping, probably not going to work. He also suggests archery, which he thinks is
no go.
Mike thinks is a great idea until he sees a clipping of Pat, and then decides not to. I love as well, because this is probably the first time they've highlighted this. There's like a picture board of all the ghosts, so it's a picture of Pat.
We've definitely seen that before.
Have we seen it before?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have seen it. Yes,
because
I remember.
I paused because I was trying to think. I'm sure that. There was I can't remember. We've definitely seen it.
We've definitely seen it now, because as soon as you said that, like, it's.
I feel like there was a picture of Fanny.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. What I was getting at with this though is, like, it's good that there's all of the ghosts on there, because for Mike, he has no idea what they look like.
But I mean, there's not going to be one of Robin, is there?
No, there's not going to be one of Robin. And I also like the picture of Thomas, where it is literally just like a stick man. It's not even a stick man, it's kind of just like a really crude drawing of him. So he just gets the idea, basically.
I suppose you'd want to know what they looked like, wouldn't you?
Kind of, yeah.
There'd be no other way apart from Alison's description.
Yeah. And obviously, if there's any paintings, so obviously you can see the painting of Fanny, because like that was in the house, so at least you can see those ones.
Was there a picture of Fanny?
Yeah, because it's like it gets wrecked, doesn't it? Oh no! That's of a dog, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a picture of.
There was a picture of her husband. Is it George?
Yes. I mean, it stands to reason that there might be a
Must be
picture.
one, yeah.
The picture of everybody else. And then Mike, while he's on the phone, decides to make something which Obi's already aware of what it is, called a fridge bap, which looked absolutely amazing. I don't even know what it was. It's just like sausage, bacon, eggs. It's just all. It looked like a breakfast bap, but just
from
like
the fridge,
stuff from the fridge. Yeah. And Obi sort of says that you're too old for that now. You can't be just eating. You've got to look after yourself.
No.
Outside, we see the ghosts are meeting this new ghost, which we learn is he's called Maddox. He already knows Robin, as Robin has met him before, and no one believed him. And we find out that he died by treading on a badger trap, which is definitely a plot point when they go to visit him later on. Pat finds out, he senses an accent, and he finds out that he's from Sheffield. And he says, he's from Huddersfield, neighbouring fields. And Maddox says, we're still neighbouring fields. And
what a joke.
Everyone chuckles. We find out that he came down looking for work as a gameskeeper, and this Julian's not impressed. He just says the working class aren't worth anything unless they're in the polling booth, basically, which is such a Julian attitude to have. And we also find out that he was working for the Aspreys, which is the family next to the Button House. He says that he doesn't like to actually stay here where they found him, as we find out that after being caught by the badger trap. It took him 9 hours to bleed out.
2 weeks to find the
And
corpse.
2 weeks to find the body. And he said he had to watch himself be eaten by badgers, which
Harrowing.
pretty gnarly for a pretty family friendly show, I guess. That's quite a description. The ghosts say that maybe he should stay and make some new memories there to sort of replace the bad ones. The captain introduces himself and he goes to say his name and it cuts.
No,
at
it's
that
so
point.
annoying.
Yeah. Obviously we know his name, but we're not going to spoil it for anybody out there. Or have we already? I can't
Probably.
remember. Possibly.
I think actually we didn't know the captain's name and someone told us.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we'd forgotten.
I think they kind of it's towards the last series, and they basically
Yeah,
it goes to that,
definitely. If not the last episode.
yeah, potentially could be. Yeah. Mike is looking for fun activities and finds that a Segway. Oh, well, he starts initially looking at Segways, which Alison says is far too much, as it costs £3,000. And she tells him he needs to stop obsessing over this one review. He suggests that they move the chess table into the B&B, but she says that it gets a lot of use, surprisingly. And as he's looking through these ideas, he gets sort of flash of inspiration when he sees the Zorb balls.
Oh, yeah. I forgot what they were called.
Yeah.
Zorb.
Zorbs, yeah. I've never been in a Zorb.
Would you like to go in one?
I don't know.
I don't like being contained. So.
Or flipped, because like the bigger ones you sort of spin and stuff like that, don't you? I mean, I wouldn't say definitely no, but I also am like, I really want to do it. You know what I mean?
I think I like to have use of my arms.
I guess at least you're in. I imagine it's kind of like being a hamster in them balls. You know what I mean? That's the closest. Alison goes back to painting her fence and sees Julian, and he he says that he couldn't get a word in edgeways. He says, "You know what those lot are like." And then Alison realizes at this point maybe she should go and speak to him and just sort of let him sort of check if he's okay, basically, because she knows what the ghosts are like. She goes to see him and says that they should possibly leave him because he looks a bit tired, which we find out is due to the blood loss. And then Alison looks over at his sort of, because we never see his bottom half, we just see his top. So Alison looks over and sees what's happening there, and then shudders and stops, basically. She convinces them all to sort of give him a break, and they say they'll see him tomorrow at the same place and same time. And then this is where Alison kind of realises that the guests who are meant to be coming today are late, and gives them a call. And she finds out that they're already there, apparently, and they've been checked in by her husband. And then she asks what her husband looked like, and then we hard cut to her basically confronting Barclay.
It's out of order, to be fair.
Very out of order. Especially as he was like...
Because he basically said like the £200 was like pennies, didn't he? Yeah. I can't remember the exact phrase that he used, but he suggested that like it wasn't much money.
Something like pin money or something like that. So he, Alison confronts him. We find that he's moved the sign and it points to Barclay's house now. And he says that he didn't steal the guests, but he did help a couple who were looking for rooms, and he was more than happy to take their money. Alison sort of berates him, but he winks and closes the door and says, keep it down, I've got guests. Just being an absolute arsehole. There's no other word for him, really. She goes to tell Mike, and she says the title of the episode, she says, they've poached their guests. Robin says delicious. And this is what you mentioned, where she says they have to count their pennies while Mike is trying to hide this Zorb purchase that he's made. and she says that she's going to fight fire with fire, which Robin is a bit confused and asks, would that work? And she realises that she's got a master of this kind of tactic in the house. And she goes to Julian, who's more than happy to help scheme, basically. Robin sees a giant chess set on the laptop and gets excited about that. And Alison asks if he's brought that, and he about wasted money, and he confidently says, "No, I haven't bought that," because he's obviously bought the Zorb balls. And this is where Julian goes into his sort of tactics of what they should do, using some judo, basically.
What you got?
What do you know about judo?
That's your plan? I fight Barclay.
No, not actual judo. It's a tactic. Use your opponent's attack against them. He's taken your sign.
Well, I took it back.
No. If that's his move, let's use it. Let him keep the sign. In fact, how about we even spruce it up a little?
Can we do that?
Of course you can. It's your sign. Oh. Yeah.
And obviously, while Julian is explaining all this, we see that Alison has amended the sign, and it now says Rat House, 2 stars, bring own cutlery, and now points to Barclay's house. In the morning, we see Fanny jump out the window as usual. I'd forgotten she did this.
Yes. We've not seen her do it for a long time.
Yeah. And because of this, now she's up. She decides to sneak off on her own to go and meet Maddox. When she gets there, she sees that the ghosts are already there, so they've already sort of had the same idea.
Beaten her to it.
Yeah. They all argue, but Pat suggests that they need to sort out a rota, like his basically like his time where the scouts, the guides, somebody else, and the boat club, was it, or something, all had to share the same building, basically, and they need a rota in a similar fashion.
They don't ask Maddox if he wants to be part of this rota.
No,
it's just kind of assumed that he would want to be their friend.
It's they kind of assuming it's like, oh, he must be lonely.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, well, he's not. We find out that he's been talking to Robin, so that's fine.
He's quite happy.
Yeah. So with this rota, we see that there's a montage of the ghosts all meeting with Maddox in a 1-to-1. Fanny is just chatting about Lady Asprey and basically spreading loads of gossip about somebody who's long dead, basically, at this point. The captain is talking about the seagull that he shot. Pat is talking about the differences between Huddersfield and Sheffield dialect. Robin is trying to teach him chess. And we see, I'll finish off the other one. So Thomas is talking about his relationship with Alison, and Kitty is just quizzing him about his injury, which must not be a fun discussion, I guess.
She's quite, she likes gruesome things, doesn't she?
Yeah, for somebody who's quite, I suppose that's childlike though, isn't it? I suppose gory stuff is kind of, horrible histories is literally it's interesting because it's all the gory stuff in history, so maybe a similar kind of thing. And yeah, while this is all happening, Maddox, you can see he's just being polite, but he's not really invested in this. He's kind of just being talked at, not talked with, I guess. Alison goes to investigate and tries to talk to Maddox about the ghosts and says that they're a bit full on. But is shooed away by Fanny, saying that if she wants to talk to him, she's got to book a slot, like everybody else. But as this happens, she hears drilling in the distance, and we see that at the front of their drive, Barclay has conveniently found potholes that need to be fixed on the road, and as this is happening, it's completely blocked off their driveway, so guests wouldn't be able to get on to their car park. I don't know. Property. Property. He says that's not a problem though, because the guests can all stay with him. And this is where we see Alison call him a few names, but they're all drowned out by the drawers. But yeah, it's very easy to work out exactly what she's calling him. She tells Julian, and he says that he's very clever, but when he goes low, they need to go lower. As Alison expects him to say, we go high. He's like, no, we go lower. They check out Barclay's estate on... it's Google Maps, but Julian calls it the CIA thing. And Julian starts looking around and says that basically people like him stay rich by cutting corners. And he's, at some point, got around some planning regulations so they can try and get him caught on that, basically. We see Mike take a delivery, which he quickly sneaks into the house and proceeds to set it up upstairs, pump up the ball, and get into it pretty carelessly, I suppose. But then again, who's he going to tell? He can't tell Alison, I suppose, until he's like got it all sorted. So yeah, he gets into the ball, and when Alison comes looking for him to tell him about what's happened, he sort of panics. The buckle falls off, or I don't know what it is.
I think it's like a release.
Yeah, like a catch to get rid of it. And then realises he can't take it off, so he just sort of runs into the bathroom to hide, but just gets wedged in the door. And as she is looking for him, for Mike, Alison gets a call from Barclay. So she is sort of taken away before she can see him stuck in this ball. Turns out Barclay's had a visit from the authorities that have come to check out his building, so their plans worked. So Julian and Alison sort of celebrate the victory at this point. Because, Barclay's quite angry on the phone and upset. I
like, because when they do like a FaceTime, don't they?
Yeah.
And obviously we know that Julian's there as well, but Barclay cannot see him.
It's just funny seeing him, because usually as well with Barclay, he's always like kind of smarmy and like he's always got
one up on everyone.
The next word to say, whereas this he's flustered and like been caught out basically.
Definitely.
Mike continues to try and get out of this Zorb ball, and he tries to pop it with a nail that's sticking out of their bedroom wall. Like, I mean, I'd have probably sorted that. I mean, it's handy in this. It's handy in this situation though, or it's not so handy because he goes to pop it on there, but it just pushes it out. He then goes downstairs and tries to pop it on some thorns outside. Isn't able to sort of brush up against it, so it's to just run at the wall. Robin sees all this, watches on, and is a bit confused. And he runs back inside, and this is where we get another one of Robin's sort of claims. He says that Mike's turned into a giant mushroom.
When he's trying to burst it, though, like... So if I'd spent X amount of money on these ball things, like, rather than pop it and ruin it and break it and like never be able to use it, I'd rather just come clean and go, I bought this thing, can you help me out with it? Because otherwise I'm going to have to break it. Surely it's better to come clean.
Maybe he wants to test it. I mean, trying to break it, that you've just, that would be double annoying, because you've spent the money
and you want nothing to show for it.
Yeah, exactly. The Barclay calls back, and he's a bit more calm and collected now, which is worrying. He says it's all fine. It's just a minor change. He just has to have a drain moved.
A vent, I think it was.
A vent, that was it, yeah. A vent moved. But then he kind of implies that something worse is on the way. So this is sort of setting something up against Alison again. It's this kind of tit-for-tat war, basically, between them. We see the ghosts are back with Maddox, and they're all arguing. They're still in the house at this point. They're all arguing about who's Maddox's best friend, even though they've only met him for probably a day. So they all argue about this, and then decide Oh no, it keeps going between at this point. So Mike is still continuing to try and get free at this point and hide from Alison. I think he goes outside, doesn't he, at this point? Or he goes somewhere else.
He ends up in the guest house.
Yes, yeah, he does. Yeah. Because obviously for the end, the ghosts decide that they need to ask Maddox basically who is his favourite. So they all go as they arrive. I put Alison is asking, but it's not. It's Kitty. Kitty's asking Maddox if he could clap his wounded leg because it's hurt sloth. So yeah, just absolutely gruesome.
So gross.
It's good sound effects.
Sloshy,
Yeah. I quite like the sound effects on this. Yeah, it sounds very accurate to what you'd imagine, I suppose. And they all talk at once again, which is what was happening with Alison, and Maddox just snaps at this point and says that they're worse than the Badgers. We go back to Mike, and he finds his way inside. So he's in the guest house at this point, and he tries to call Obi, but he can't hear him when he calls him, and then drops his phone on the floor. He gets his arm stuck as he's calling Obi and keeps saying "my arm," which Obi starts thinking this is a heart attack. He's talking
too many fridge baps.
Too many fridge baps, like that his arm's gone stiff. And then Mike accidentally hangs up, so obviously Obi panics, and we see what happens afterwards with that. Alison is outside and sees a van turn up at the guest house, and she goes to investigate, and we go back to Maddox, and he says that none of the ghosts are his best friend. He's just
so mean.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh no, sorry, I've got this over. So they're all arguing. He mutters that they're worse than the Badgers, and then it goes back to him later, and he snaps, and then. Sorry, yeah, it's been a
It's
week.
It's difficult when
it
goes back and forth between scenes. It's difficult to kind of
especially when it's been a week ago. It's trying to remember exactly. You just meld those two things together as one big scene. So so he snaps and tells them that none of them are his best friends. We go back to the van and we see that Barclay says that he found something in the excavation of their rubble that they've got from their when they did the B&B, and he says he informed the authorities, and these two sort of. I don't really know, council workers, I'm not really sure.
I think you can call a council.
They're investigating, they find something on top of the rubble pile and say that it's definitely asbestos, and they as this has come out of the B&B, they'll have to close the B&B down. And Alison is absolutely livid at this point. She accuses Barclay of planting it there to try and get them closed down, and Barclay's on the defensive, saying that he couldn't do this, trying to just say, you're just clutching at straws here. But obviously she's got Julian in the background giving her ideas that he can't hear. So Julian basically tells Alison where the tile came from, because it's a roof tile basically. And it would have had to have come from his house. So the asbestos is actually in his house, so we need to get that checked.
It's probably in one of his barns or something.
Yeah.
Oh, did he say that, or have I just made that up?
Yeah, I think probably off of his barn, yeah. It's one of the tiles off his barn, I think. And also she says that if he'd brought it here and dumped it there, that's illegal fly tipping of a hazardous substance, which is much more serious than just having an asbestos in your house. Barclay quickly backtracks and starts to say, forget all this, and panics as soon as he hears a siren, which is, it's funny that the implication is that the police are coming to get him straight away. So he sort of flees, saying, he's getting out of this accommodation game, so, Alison's won. The counsellor. We see an ambulance turn up, this is what the siren was, and they say they're looking for Mike. And Mike bursts out of the guest house in the Zorb suit and just says that he's okay. And the counsellor at this point just says, "What's going on?" Alison says that she doesn't know anymore either. We go back to Maddox, and he basically starts telling the ghosts about how they're annoying.
I just find you all profoundly annoying. And why do you need another friend? I mean, look at you. Stuck in that house with each other all this time, and yet here you all are, out here, together. How are you not sick of the sight of each other?
Oh, we are.
Very much.
Oh, give over. If I were any of you, I'd have been off living on my own in the woods years ago. I mean, I don't know what you call it, this, but face it, you'd all be lost without it.
So after these sort of
Hard truths.
hard truths, from Maddox, the captain starts to talk about them as a group, and he starts to say how they're all not everyone's perfect cup of tea, linking back to the conversation before. But as he goes to continue talking to Maddox, that Robin just says he's gone, and Robin has said that he's moved on, he's been sucked off, and they all are sort of a bit like, oh, okay, oh well, never mind. And they all leave, continuing to argue about what they were saying, because the captain says that he had a good point, and all the rest are talking and saying that he's talking rubbish, basically. So back to the argument that we're having, basically. But Robin lingers, and as they sort of disappear, Maddox pops his head from behind the hedge, and we find that he's not actually disappeared, he just hid from them because he got sick of them. And they
seems to like Robin, though, doesn't he?
Yeah,
So.
he gets on with Robin. Maddox says there are a lot to take in, and Robin agrees. And then they say, anyway, I'll see you next Tuesday.
I think the squelching of his leg as he walks on is like...
the limping away. With the
it makes me like heave. It's horrible.
Well, yeah, don't be messing around with badger traps.
No.
Them surely illegal these days. Badger traps,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, when was he? I imagine he died around the same time as Fanny, probably. In the 20s, maybe, something like that. Because those badger traps are quite, or maybe the 40s or something. Don't know.
no.
I'm not sure.
When was Fanny? When was her years?
Like the turn of the century. It's kind of like at the same time
1900s.
as. Yeah, it's like.
Because she talks about the Titanic.
Yes. Yeah. Basically,
so,
she comes from the same era as Downton.
Okay. So I guess the badger traps definitely would have been a thing.
Fine,
You
maybe.
definitely can't kill badgers now.
No, you have to get I googled badger traps because I wanted to see what they look like, and they were like cages, kind of
Like
like
cat traps.
Yeah,
like-
kind of. Yeah, yeah. That's badger trap these days.
When you've been chased by a family of badgers.
I've not heard that story.
Well, do you know what? I'll tell you.
Yes. So Maddox sort of limps away, as you mentioned, and then we get the final scene. We see Robin and Julian playing big chess with pots, pans, chairs, and just other bric-a-brac. And Julian's talking about how he's sort of the master of strategy as Robin checkmates him. We see Mike and Alison zorbing, and Alison says it is actually quite fun, and he's quite glad that he's bought them. Until she has the same problem, the latch comes off, and then as Mike goes to take his off to help, his also does it, so they're both stuck, and they both just say "oh no" as the episode ends. Probably another phone call to Obi, I would imagine. To get them out. What do you think?
It was okay. Obviously, it's a good episode. You know, but it was just so... I don't know. I'd still give it a high score because I just think this series overall is good. But obviously following such a emotional but also funny, just overall really good episode. The last episode. It's hard to follow.
The last two episodes have been really strong, so...
It's hard to follow.
Yeah.
And obviously you're going to have like the episodes that are like aren't as good, and it does all come down to preference. I think I gave it an 8 because I do think it's a good episode. I like the sort of bringing back Barclay, the introduction of like, although we don't see him again, I don't think.
I don't trust myself these days to make that statement.
Of Maddox, it's a good episode, and I enjoyed it. But again, it's just hard to follow the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I think this is episode 5, isn't it?
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think,
one normal episode left, and then the Christmas special. Yeah,
because like the episode with Mary and Annie, like really good episode.
That's the thing. Yeah,
like obviously the last episode with Mary, like it's
I put the hardest word as well, like literally. So like the one with Gone Gone. So the last one, hardest word, where they have to do their dance.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And
that's such like it's iconic, isn't it?
Yeah. And then the Mary and what's the one before that? So like it's a string of like 3 really good episodes.
Strong, yeah. So it's it's one of them. It's not bad. It's just hard to follow. Like some strong episodes. So yeah, I give it an 8.
Yeah.
Just because. Yeah. It's difficult, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I give. I'm not going to go into it again. But like, I give these like ratings like willy nilly, like, like I'm like, okay, why was that an 8 over one that I might have rated lower? Yeah, I'm going to stick with it though.
Yeah, I'd say stick with it.
I can't think too much into it.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, they similar kind of thoughts. It's a bit vanilla, I guess. After coming
I
off,
wanted to say vanilla.
Yeah,
but,
like it's not bad. It's just a standard Ghost episode, whereas the last 3 have been.
Yeah, I wanted to use the word vanilla, but I thought it was too harsh.
No, I don't see vanilla as a bad thing. Like it just means it's the standard. Do you know what I mean? Like.
Which is still high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I quite like the Alison Barclay war. That plot was good. And it's always good to see Barclay sort of lose because a lot of the times he's sort of he gets away with it, if you know what I mean. Whereas this time he actually lost.
He didn't get away with it when they had the access issue. That was quite early on. They kind of got around him with that, but I can't remember how. Maybe thanks to Julian again.
Possibly,
Maybe
yeah. Julian is his counter, basically, because he came to him. I thought the Maddox story was fun, but didn't really... It was just like, oh, it's a new ghost, but like... It didn't lead anywhere. And the Mike story, it had a decent bit of physical comedy with him just bouncing off walls and stuff like that, but it didn't really add much to it. And then, it wasn't too much to it. But again, not a bad episode. I give it a 7, so a little bit lower. But with the IMDb score, it was a 7.5 from 334 votes, so smack bang in the middle of ours. So I think that's pretty fair. I'd say our two scores.
Ghost Stories with Luke and Tash.
So, this week I have a story called The Guests. I'll tell you something about the story at the end, but let's just get straight into the tale. A young man and his wife were on a trip to visit his mother. Usually, they arrived in time for supper, but they had gotten a late start and now it was getting dark. So they decided to look for a place to stay overnight and go on in the morning. Just off the road, they saw a small house in the woods. Maybe
that's never a good sign.
Maybe they rent rooms, the wife said. So they stopped to ask. An elderly man and woman came to the door. They didn't rent rooms, they said. but they would be glad to have them stay overnight as their guests. They had plenty of room. Is this building suspense?
No, I'm just like, these people are idiots. Why are they doing this? Why? Don't go up to the random house. Don't ask a random house. Find a travel lodge.
Well, they found a house in the woods, so, close enough.
Okay, sorry.
They had plenty of room, and they would enjoy the company. The old woman made coffee and brought out some cake, and the four of them talked for a while. Then the young couple were taken to their room. They again explained that they wanted to pay for this, but the old man said he would not accept any money. The young couple got up early the next morning, before their hosts had awakened. On a table near the front door, they left an envelope with some money in it for the room. Then they went on to the next town. They stopped in a restaurant and had breakfast. When they told the owners where they had stayed, he was shocked. "That can't be," he said. "That house burnt to the ground, and the man and the woman who lived there died in the fire." The young couple could not believe it, so they went back to the house. Only now there was no house. All they found was a burnt-out shell. They stood staring at the ruins, trying to understand what had happened. Then the woman screamed. In the rubble was a badly burnt table, like the one had been seen by the front door. On the table was the envelope they had left there that morning. So that's the guests. So ghost house this time.
Right.
I realised.
Ghost house.
I realised after I did this one that every one of these like ghost folk stories and stuff like that, and campfire stories and stuff like that, they all come from one book. There's a book called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark or something like that. Every story I've ever heard or anyone's ever told me, like a urban legend, they all come from this. There's like 3 of them. They all come from these books.
Have you ever considered that
they've compiled them. Yeah, potentially, yeah. I know they made it into a film as well. That what's it? But yeah, so,
Mad.
But yeah,
they made that story into a film.
Not that one, but the book anthology got turned into a film. So they're for kids, but they're scary. So there you go. Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Short but sweet this week.
Thanks for listening. We love to hear what you think, and if you'd like to keep up to date with when new episodes of the podcast are released, you can follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook profile. Just search Haunting Button House. You can also get in touch via email at hauntingbuttonhouse@outlook.com.